To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
Fear not, everybody. We're back after covering the living hell out of the X-Men franchise on screen. Your ever-lovable hosts, Matt Waters, Mike Thomas, we are back with a vengeance to cover a very different kind of superhero on screen, and that is Batman. You are listening to the Real World Podcasters that's been renamed, and this mini-series will be known as The Tape Crusaders, which Mike Thomas came up with, and to let him just bask in the glory of that pun, I'm going to hand it over to him now. So, Mike, you've created a wonderful thing here.
Yeah, this is the thing with humor. You have to be good at it. And, some people are just born with it.
There we go. I don't want to say I'm the more popular one of our duo, but these kinds of claims are just so endearing. No, I will give it to you. You are the creative end of this. I'm just here with the facts. You're the colour commentator, if you will.
Yeah.
So, you and I both love X-Men. However, Batman, we're kind of dealing with a different scale here. This is something that you're more casual film goer, you're more general member of society has a deeper awareness of than necessarily with X-Men. So, not that X-Men is lesser, but we've got a bigger task on our hands here, I feel. So, do you feel up to this, of taking on a lot of people's favourite superhero?
Yeah, I mean, we're literally starting off with a movie that goes back 50 years, whereas the whole X-Men cinematic universe is 15 years long and counting, or 16 years long and counting. And we could have even gone back further.
Yeah.
To like the weird serials that I once tried to watch and got like 8 minutes in. I think this was an appropriate place to start the 1966 Batman movie.
Yeah, while doing my research, I did, in my head I thought, I swear there's something earlier than this, but I wasn't sure, and then I did stumble across these serials. I didn't watch them, but I briefly considered telling you, hey, this shouldn't be the first episode, we've got more work to do, but let's be real here, there's so much Batman, we are not going to cover all of it. We're going to try and hit the highest notes, and it's pretty impossible to ignore the 1966 Batman because of its intrinsic ties to one of the most popular TV shows, and then one of the least popular TV shows of all time, which was Batman. We're going to focus more on the film, but we kind of have to touch on the series a little bit as well.
Yeah, and this film was originally intended, I believe, to come out before the first season of the show, but ended up coming out between seasons 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. They, I guess they got the TV show done quicker than they had intended.
It's basically what would happen if it's a really comic and campy interpretation of Batman, if you don't know, and it's absolutely hysterical. It is. It is the complete, as tonally opposite from Batman vs Superman as you can be, but it's also about as tonally opposite as Christopher Nolan's as you can be. And I think what that proves is that there isn't just one interpretation of Batman. There are a wide variety of interpretations of Batman, and all of them can be good. It just comes down to execution.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a character that is coming up on 80 years old. That is just insane. And I can't sit here and claim that I have read hundreds upon hundreds of issues of Batman spanning back decades, but I have a vague awareness of what this character was like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and it changes a lot. And like you said, these interpretations are no less valid, and I think each film and TV show and cartoon and comic book, they all work within themselves. They all have a valid continuity. Like, as long as it's executed right, and you've still got this man dressed as a bat who's a billionaire with dead parents. Like, it kind of all works, and that's why this is possible for us to visit, and I think it's why it's interesting to visit, because you are going to get some very different takes as we go from here up to the Zack Snyder or Christopher Nolan, these sort of grittier versions. But we are starting out with, as you said, what can only be described as almost a parody of Batman. I mean, yeah, it's so camp. It's you kind of have to check that at the door. Like, entering into this, it's very hard to get through if you can't make your peace with the fact that this is a very different time, that this is a very different tone. I will admit, the first time I saw it, I had a lot of trouble doing that, and I just spent most of the film going, oh, but this is so stupid. But if you can just let go of that and just accept it as silly, dumb fun that is intentionally almost making fun of its source material, then it's funny and enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think the key is that it's still done with love of the characters and the world, and it's taken not seriously, but it's almost like they do a serious job of being silly, essentially.
Yeah, like everyone is playing
and
this
they commit
straight
to
as an arrow.
Yes. I mean, I don't know how Adam West got through some of the line deliveries that he did, but like they take it, everyone commits to it, and it was interesting. I mean, it's just funny. Like, it's literally, to me, I think it's just funny. I laughed constantly throughout. I think it's one of the most purely enjoyable superhero movies to watch in terms of just, like, you can throw it on and just enjoy it like any old time. Like, this isn't something you have to, like, mentally commit to where you're going to have to, you feel like you're suffering as you get through it, which is honestly how I feel about the idea of rewatching Batman v Superman. I'm just like, when am I going to carve out the 2 hours and 15 minutes to do that to myself again?
You're not. You're going to carve out the more time it takes to watch the Ultimate Edition.
To watch the Ultimate Edition, yes. Yeah. 2.5 hours, or 2 hours and 45 minutes, whatever. And I think anybody... So I think a thing with Batman is, because there's so many different interpretations, people are prone to be a little defensive of their formative experience with Batman, and are less likely to be open-minded about other interpretations. And that is someone who did just that. Like, Batman to me was the animated series as a kid, and then Batman to me as a young adult turning adult were the Nolan movies. And for a while, like, I couldn't be even open-minded about this one, really only until the last 5 years or so, and to truly just appreciate the ridiculousness of it. And like I said, I think everyone should. I think because there are so many different interpretations of Batman, everyone should at least should dip their toe at each interpretation and see if it's for them in any way. Yeah. I think at this point, though, I'd be shocked if anyone didn't like this one.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real here. There are people that think that, like, Frank Miller invented Batman in the 80s, and that there is only one true interpretation, and it's Heath Ledger's Joker over everything, and those people are kind of insufferable, and I take pleasure in the idea of making them sit through this and see them cringe as they see what is actually not an unfaithful adaptation of some Batman comics, just taken to some extremes. Do we need to say, like, who Batman is? Like, should that be a preface in the first episode?
I don't know if you know, but his parents have died.
So what happened? All right, talk me through this.
His parents died, and we should automatically feel sympathy for him.
Yes.
I think what this proves is that the definition of faithful should not be so limited. It should be, it's how can you capture the idea that there's this person that is so mentally and psychologically damaged and traumatized from their childhood that they would decide to become a fascist lunatic and take authoritarian control of a city. And I think they get around it, this one, by basically he's like an active member of the police for all intents and purposes. Like, he's literally deputized by the police.
Yeah.
Like, he's an official agent. He's an official agent of the police and does his best to work with the system as opposed to upend the system. And I actually, if anything, I don't know if that is not being faithful of Batman, but I think that's probably the least faithful aspect of Batman, is that he is very much a part of the system here.
You would be surprised. I think he. Again, I'm not going to sit here and claim I am Batman expert number one, because I'm sure the actuallys are coming. But I think he was actually in the comics as well, officially deputized, but not as overtly as it is here, where he's got a direct line to the commissioner, and he's getting thumbs ups from cops and like people who, just the degree to which he's essentially super cop, and they call on him when they are too stumped. It's never been more front and center to the character than it is here. Like, they only really mention his backstory and his parents being dead in like the first episode of the show, and it never really comes up again. It's like an afterthought. It's just, okay, here's a guy who dresses up in a costume and he fights crime and he's good. Let's focus on that. And they did, and he's got gadgets, and boy did they ever focus on those. And yeah, that is part of the character, and you can't deny that. And they made a version that was, I can't overstate how incredibly popular this series was back in the day. Like, the global phenomenon that oddly died out very quickly after it became that. But for a while, like, Batman was like the most popular thing in the world. So you can't sidestep all this history and stuff.
Yeah, it's and yeah, I think that's a good point though. What you said though, I mean, like, you proved it right there that the notion of being faithful to an interpretation of Batman is probably inherently misguided, because there have just been too many interpretations at this point to claim that there is only one way to portray him. Like, you can even do, like, I mean, I'm sure, like, Neil Gaiman could do some trippy one where his parents never died or something like that.
Yeah, I think Neil Gaiman has written Batman. I haven't read it myself. I'd like to.
Yeah, no, he has. Oh, I mean, whatever happened to the Cape Crusader is like my favorite comic book ever.
I haven't read that.
It's awesome.
As a massive Neil Gaiman fan and as a Batman fan, I need to, but I haven't read it.
I mean, it was the book that made me interested in Neil Gaiman. I was just like, what? What is this?
Guys, look forward to our podcast miniseries on Neil Gaiman.
I literally have a stack of books. Like, I'm looking at a stack of Neil Gaiman books right now that I bought off of Amazon based on one Batman comic book in the first 100 pages of American Gods.
All right, screw Batman. Let's talk about Neverwhere. Let's go. No, okay. So Batman. We have Batman. We have a 1966 film on a budget of $1.3 million, which, it's hard to adjust money, but that's small compared to the hundreds of millions they're throwing at these things these days. And it's really just like kind of 4 episodes crammed together almost, or several episodes crammed together. It visually I even looked up just to make sure I wasn't like completely wrong. Like, was this a series of episodes that they turned into a movie? Like, it's not obvious either way. I don't know. I think it was supposed to. You could do it as both. Like, you could easily chop this up and do next time on, because there are very clear sort of act breaks.
It's almost like they made it with the intention of, we'll be able to show this in multiple parts later down the line or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, it uses almost the exact same cast, except for Catwoman. And we'll get into the cast, I suppose, in a moment. You're using, like, the same props, the same sets. You get the inclusion of more expensive things like a boat and a helicopter that the movie money brings. But otherwise, this is just a very long episode, essentially. And I think one of the ways that they justify its existence as a film is, I mean, the team up of multiple villains. Like, it's a concept that will come up over and over again throughout, superhero fiction, is what if they all join forces, then they will be able to defeat the Batman. And to see Joker, Penguin, Riddler, and Catwoman all united, it's like, okay, I can see why that would be worthy of a film. Yeah, and I guess I can go into the plot if people really want.
Yeah, just quickly go into it, I guess, so people can have some context.
Okay, so as I said, you have 4 of Batman's most iconic foes who have all appeared previously in the TV show joining forces. They steal... They kidnap a ship captain who's invented some magical dehydration device because, inventors, ship captains, it's interchangeable. So there's a number of encounters between Batman and Robin, and the villains that eventually leads to them successfully turning 9 world leaders from a stand-in version of the UN into color-coded, dehydrated piles of dust using this magical dehydration gun, and that allows them to steal them from the building. Because how would 4 people carry 9 grown humans out of a building without being noticed? They wouldn't, but they can put dust into test tubes very carefully, or not at all if you actually watch it, and take them away. And they hold them ransom on the Penguin submarine, and they demand millions of dollars. $9 million, I think they ask for, which is just lunacy. Batman and Robin rescue them. There's a big fist fight. Catwoman trips over and her mask comes off. That's literally how she is defeated in this big fight. And in a subplot, she reveals her face to Batman, and he'd fallen in love with her very quickly and very creepily as Bruce Wayne, and he's, of course, devastated to learn that she was duping him all along. And then, while they defeat the villains and they rescue this magical inventing ship captain, he does knock over the containers holding all the dust piles, and they all mingle together, and all hope is lost. But thankfully, Batman has the exact machine needed to restore them all to normal, except they end up switching personalities and languages. And they're like, okay, that's cool. Maybe this will lead to world peace. Let's bounce through this window, as he claims inconspicuously. And then the credits roll, and it says, The Living End, truly remarkable ending credit sequence. This thing is bananas. I'm leaving out sequences where, like, Batman is running around with a giant bomb, and a dolphin takes a hit from a missile.
A porpoise.
My bad, actuallys. It's insane. It's utter lunacy, but it's glorious.
Yeah, it feels... I mean, it feels like this was written when people were on drugs. Like, it just feels... I don't know how someone could come up with some of these ideas. I really don't. I can't relate to the notion of coming up with a porpoise taking one for the team and jumping in front of a missile so Robin and Batman wouldn't die. It's just complete lunacy. And, Adam West is so good as this version of Bruce and Batman. I've always wanted like an updated version with Jeff Goldblum in the role. I feel like that's the only person who could pull it off at this point. But it's such a...
Sorry.
I mean, oh, come on. Would you not watch updated Batman with Jeff Goldblum and, I don't know.
It doesn't matter who else.
It doesn't matter who's Robin.
That's so good. That's such a good modern Adam West stand-in.
He basically did that in the new Independence Day movie, was just play Adam West. It was great. It was literally the only thing worth watching in it. Yeah. I feel this movie's hard to analyze beyond it's this crazy, trippy drug movie. Everyone needs to see it. Like, how did anyone come up with this?
That's a hell of a drug, man. It's insanity, and Adam West kind of. I think the only way to do this is just to look at the characters, because the situations will never come up to be compared to again. So we might as well look at the characters and how they're portrayed against later versions. But you got to start with Adam West. Like, this dude is delivering Shakespeare monologues and just stoically looking off into the distance, heartbroken, and saying some of the most insane things anyone's ever said with a straight face, and god damn it, it's brilliant. He literally won the role because he believes he's the only one who could say the lines without laughing, and that's just commendable. This man did a funky dance in the Batman costume in the first episode. Just brilliant, just such commitment.
Because I did watch that episode, I'm just like, what is going on right now? How is this not a GIF that I haven't seen 5 billion times? Like,
yeah, it's quite something. You will, and like, I don't know, for as good as later Batman would be, there's just something about Adam West like committing to it so hard that is just so endearing.
Yeah. Burt Ward plays Robin. he does what's required of him. He's no Adam West, basically.
Yeah, I mean, even throughout the show, like, he's often cut off mid-sentence. There's very little mention of who he actually is. He's just standing there to be the other one. So campy, so off this era.
I mean, there's a Commissioner Gordon, but he doesn't really do anything of note. He's just there for exposition.
Mm-hmm.
Alfred's just there because Alfred needs to be there. He doesn't really have to do anything. And they have Robin's aunt is there for some reason. She seems to be the maid or the gardener. That's lovely stuff. There's a Chief O'Hara who's Irish. That's his character. Let's see who is, and then there's the villains, who I guess we should deserve a little bit more attention.
Yeah, because I mean, aside from Batman the character, I think the most enduring thing in terms of his legacy is he has, bar none, the premier gallery of rogues, the best toolbox to play with when it comes to villains. You know, you've got Marvel films at the moment have a real serious issue with bad guys, and we've talked about a bit of that, and we talked about that a bit in some ways in the X-Men, but here we have some truly wonderful characters, and here are some interpretations that are not quite as some people know them, but no less valid.
I think the one that's probably the most similar is Catwoman, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms, like, she's existing somewhere between the lines. She's not, you can sense that she's not all the way a villain. She's definitely not all the way a hero. She has this weird flirty relationship with Bruce. It's done differently, obviously. She pretends to be somebody else, but I think that one's probably the most true to what people have come to expect from Catwoman.
Yeah, I mean, I feel she's monetarily motivated rather than evil. Like, it's almost like it's the three guys being evil, and then she's just standing there like, guys, come on, do this, do that. And
it's almost like she's in a different movie, but it actually works.
Yeah.
When she's Catwoman.
Yeah.
When she's playing the fake Russian journalist, she's very much in this movie.
Yeah. She's. I mean, Catwoman was played by, I think, 4 different actresses.
I believe 3. This was Julie Newmar, right?
No, this is Leah Merriweather replacing Julie Newmar. And then Eartha Kitt ends up playing her.
Which was notable for me because now I finally understand that Pierce joke from season 3 of Community, where he talked repeatedly about banging Eartha Kitt.
Yeah. There you go. You're going to hear a lot of old-timey actor names here.
Frank Gorshin played the Riddler.
Yeah.
I spent my entire childhood listening to my father talk about how brilliant Frank Gorshin was as the Riddler.
Yeah.
So that will always hold a special place in my heart, obviously.
He's not doing as much in the film, but in the first 2 episodes of the show, like, he's pretty good. And actually, he's got a kind of intensity and scariness that we associate more with the Joker in modern times, while Joker is much more lighthearted, as we'll talk about in a second. And they almost do a flip at some point in sort of cultural understanding of the characters, where Riddler, while a little bit dangerous, is a little bit more lighthearted than the Joker, who we all know to be insane. But I mean, he's not doing as much here in the film, but I think he plays him pretty well. Apparently, he's a stand-up comedian in his other career, so he brought some of that energy to the character. Yeah, and
there's something about him that really reminded me of Willy Wonka. What's Willy Wonka's name?
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder. There was this really creepy Gene Wilder quality to him that made me realize Gene Wilder was born to play a comic book villain. I think it's interesting because you could, like you said, though, there's definitely that danger side of him that you could see him more easily becoming a more serious villain for a more serious interpretation of Batman in a way that no one else in this movie would really fit into.
Yeah. I mean, there's just this sort of edge to him as he sort of, I don't know, he's sarcastically mocking their entire ethos and making threats to kill people, and It's a lot darker than a lot of people may remember. Although, having said that, he is wearing a skin-tight green onesie.
Yes.
With little purple pants and a little purple mask.
That is true. There's something about his eyes, though. Like you can really see it in his eyes where he just looks like this guy could be absolutely insane. Mm-hmm. Then we got Cesar Romano playing the Joker.
Or even Cesar Romero.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is, as we talked about, a far sillier version of the Joker. This is basically... he doesn't seem dangerous at all.
No.
Which is obviously a big difference. However, there's still that sense that he doesn't really care what happens either way. It's like he's still just doing it to do it.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty firm part of the character.
Yeah. So Joker went through a lot of changes, much like Batman did. While in his very earliest incarnations, he was a killer en masse. He very quickly turned into more of a prankster and like a menace. And the idea of him as Batman's nemesis wouldn't come for quite a while, which is why you look at this and you look at the series. I think he only made like 10 appearances throughout the series, which seems
22.
Oh, all right.
I was literally looking at the cast list as you said that. So.
Okay, maybe it's 10 in series 1 I'm thinking of, or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, it is much more. He's one of many. You know, it's just Batman has many foes. Joker is one of them. It's not. He has many foes, but among them chiefly is his nemesis, the Joker. Like, that is absent, and we are smack bang in the middle of the era where he's just sort of a criminal who has clown-based, comedy-based capers going on, and it's not like the pure force of chaos that will psychotically murder everything. Like, that is not here at all. There are moments where you get some of the more recognizable traits, like I think there's a moment when they are all planning their scheme where his laugh or just the way he's talking, it sounds Mark Hamill-esque. But for the most part, he's kind of just giggling and being a bit inept.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely not as interesting as a main villain, but as a supporting villain, it works very well in this story.
Yeah, he's almost a henchman. Like, you've got Catwoman is driving her own subplot with the Kitka alias, and she's kind of seems like the grown-up amongst the group. And then you have who we're about to talk about, the Penguin, is kind of almost the infrastructure leader. And Joker and Riddler are really just demoted to sort of, you know, the Toad Sabretooth role to Magneto in X-Men. So I guess we got to talk about Burgess Meredith as Penguin now to round out the quartet.
The Penguin, I don't think I've seen an interpretation of the Penguin that I really like or that I really find interesting. I don't know. Do you feel like there's a standard bearer for the Penguin that doesn't just like deserves our respect?
Not really. Like, I think he's representative of a more traditional style of criminal. Like, he's organized crime, he's guns, he's that kind of thing. Because I mean, Batman, the Batman sort of mythos that is commonly accepted now is, at first Batman's fighting just the mob, organized crime, and then because he is a different kind of hero, we get a different kind of criminal come forth, and we get the wackier costumed people. And Penguin, while he is, you know, he's got a trick umbrella and his weird mannerisms, he is fundamentally an arms dealer, an organized crime leader, etc. So I think, I don't know, he's like important in that way, but he's never been, to me, as iconic as the other people. Although he is one you think of quite quickly, but not necessarily for positive reasons.
Yeah, I've always kind of like pictured Daniel Day-Lewis's Daniel Playview interpretation of Penguin. That's like something I've always wanted.
Yeah,
it's so random, obviously, and arbitrary, but just someone who is more, who just kind of like has like a weird looking nose. Like I don't need someone squawking. I mean, it works obviously well with this one. And while, you know, I'll talk about my disdain for Batman Returns in a couple episodes, or actually probably the next episode. Even that tonally works. It's just that, this overall, I feel like the margin of error with Penguin is very small compared to everything else, and I would prefer they just...
There has definitely been a concerted effort, I would say, in recent times to make him more conventional looking as a person, less Penguin themed. It's really just a nickname, and he's just a smaller person.
It's like instead of the Kingpin, he's the Penguin. Like, it doesn't seem like that much of a stretch to do it that way.
I mean, I personally don't love how he's portrayed on the TV show Gotham, but there's that.
We are not reviewing that, by the way.
No, you're damn right we're not. We can review it in like a sentence at some point.
Fucking awful.
Spoilers. But I mean, in the Arkham games, in the most recent Telltale game, he's like wildly different. He's just like a British gangster man. And some of the comics I've read, he is a little bit less silly, and I think just making him just a more normal person is to his benefit.
Yeah, I feel like an actual Penguin man is representative of a corner of the DC universe that I cannot relate to or get into, so the further away they are from that, the better for all involved.
Yeah. That being said, there is something oddly charming about him squawking, Burgess Meredith squawking in this film. In amidst all the other crazy shit that's going on, he doesn't seem out of place. It's not a character.
No, absolutely not. I think I just use this as an opportunity to talk about, I don't like the Penguin.
Yeah, it's not a character that will endure.
Yeah, I can understand how all the others became iconic, and apparently the Riddler really only became a main villain because of this. So, points to Frank Gorshin if you care about the Riddler.
Yeah.
But the Penguin himself, I don't get it. It seems like he's famous because he's famous. It's like I can't see the connection of how he became that way.
I don't know. He's rich, and he's one of the few remaining organized crime people, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that like the story of him being like the last Kingpin left is actually, I guess it is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm cynic. I don't know. What else do we need to talk about with this one?
I don't know. You can sit here and go through all the dumb shit, like how there's a bat ladder that says bat ladder on the bottom. Yeah. You can talk about shark repellent spray. And how the Penguin doesn't say, when he's making his excuses, he says, I didn't know he'd have it handy. Not that there's such thing as a shark repellent spray. That he had some.
How was I supposed to know he had it handy? Squawk, squawk, squawk.
And like instant costume change levers, and the super molecular dust separator, and everything in his cave being labelled even though it's his cave and he's not giving a fucking tour. You can talk about all of that, and it's all valid, but it's also just good, dumb fun. And if you just sit and look at it as if you read it as a comedy film, it's valid. Like, I have a friend who can't watch anything without asking me, is this supposed to be... Like, if there's a moment where something is a little bit bad, they'll ask me, is this supposed to be a comedy? And, like, they cannot enjoy it until I tell them outright whether it's just that was a bad moment or if it's on purpose. And I don't normally feel like that, but watching this, I kind of do, where if I try and view this as a serious thing, I can't enjoy it. But if I just go, yeah, it's a comedy, then it's instantly far more enjoyable.
I think that was my issue as a kid. Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around the idea of Batman being portrayed as a comedy. And I was just like, oh, this is just a really dated movie. Like, they're trying to be serious, but this is what they came up with.
Yeah. And it's weird. There are moments here and there where you see things that have come back. Like, the Joker in his first appearance, or maybe second, he wears a clown mask for an opera. He's like impersonating an opera. I can't pronounce it. Pagliacci, something like that. And the mask he wears there is the one that Heath Ledger is holding in the bank robbery in the Dark Knight. And there's loads of little things here and there that have somehow endured, but no one can think about this without thinking like pow, bam, biff, like on, and just Batman dancing and the weird sort of white eyebrows on the mask, and
but,
it's weird that it was so popular. It died off in popularity so quickly. It's simultaneously so influential and also almost a black spot on the record of Batman, where some people are going, "Oh no, this is killing that thing I love." But as we've said, that's not true. It's such a weird animal, this whole era of Batman.
Yeah, I don't know. Just approach it with an open mind. I think it's a hard one for me to envision people not enjoying if they try it now. Especially right now, as people are so sick of Batman being dark and serious. I think this would be a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. And I think it was really, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but the fact that they are releasing a cartoon version of it is pretty good timing on their part. I was hoping to see it in the theaters, but I ended up missing it. But I'll catch it. I'm sure we'll talk about it in like 2 months. I think we'll get there in about 2 months.
And apparently they are doing a sequel to that.
Yeah.
So
already. So I guess the...
Go them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, we talk about the people being sick of the darkness, but really this shows one of its biggest legacies is when it sort of went completely off the rails and got cancelled and declined in popularity, it had a direct impact on the comics. Like, the comics were close to getting cancelled at this point, and then the popularity of the show boosted the comics again, and then when the show went downhill, it almost killed the comics again, and it made them consciously say, okay, we need to really separate ourselves from this because the Batman brand has been damaged. And they made a real conscious effort to go the other way, and that is what
Which makes sense.
Yeah, and that is what led to the version of Batman that we will see come up in the Tim Burton interpretation, in the animated series, and of course in the Nolan trilogy, which is damaging for the opposite reason, in my opinion. We will get there. But I guess this has been the 60s Batman. Yeah.
Go watch it, everybody. It's on Netflix.
Maybe in America, my friend, but not here.
Yeah. The only place that matters.
Exactly. Emperor Trump's Grand Empire has better Netflix. There's less to talk about because it's simpler and it's easy to...
Yeah, there's not a lot of themes to unpack here. But
it's important to know where we're coming from.
Yeah, it's important to know where Batman really made its big mark.
Yes, and did it ever? So, in principle, the plan is next to go chronologically to Tim Burton's Batman and Batman Returns, because we don't really want to do one episode each, because, I mean, this one was short as it was, and also, who really wants to talk about those for, like, hours on end? So we're just going to do one big... This is the Burton Batman, and then we're probably going to do the Schumacher Batman, and then you will get your individual episodes for the Nolan trilogy, and we'll see what happens after that. But this has been 60s Batman. Everyone do the bat dance, and, pick up your bat phones and play with your bat ladders and bat boats and everything. Everything bat all the time. Bat goodbye, everybody.